listening to Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
This episode of the Hammer Factor is brought to you by Extreme Sport Veco. Go to extremesportveco.com/Hammer Factor to get all the beta on a kayaking trip to Norway and to this incredible event. June 23rd through June 30th in Voss, Norway. On the water, they have kayaking, rafting, they have a cliff diving competition. In the air, they have paragliding, base jumping, skydiving. So on the earth, they have mountain biking, bouldering, longboarding, you name it. This is the biggest extreme sports festival in the world. If you're ever interested in going to this event or Norway in general, go to extremesportveco.com/Hammer Factor and check it out. Okay, here we go. Part 2.
That's awesome.
Fascinating, huh?
Yeah. What am I doing in my life, man?
Right? What's wrong with you?
Well, we've got a lot of stuff to get into here. We've got a lot of listener mail. I'm
feeling a two-part show. We can knock out 2 shows here at once.
We've got some boat designs and reviews. We've got the high and dry to talk about.
Big news of the high and dry.
The high and dry. We got a lot of emails, a lot of comments on the high and dry.
I feel like there are like these things that like I can tell must have taken off on social media somewhere, and I've just totally missed it. And like all of a sudden we get like 7 emails about something like the high and dry, and you're just like imagining that there must be some brouhaha on Facebook or YouTube or something, or Boater Talk or whatever.
Well, let's just put that aside for a moment. Back to that. Okay, can we talk about Tom McEwen?
Yeah, lead us off.
And this is a great segue from Rocky Contos to Tom McEwen. McEwen, how does McEwen need an introduction?
I think
people need to know
probably
who
does,
he is.
because it's like, I mean, there's a certain percentage of people for whom Tom McEwen, like everybody who's actually met Tom McEwen in the flesh, he's become this, I don't know, for a lot of us, this like prophet figure in our life. And then the people who don't know Tom McEwen just don't know Tom McEwen. Like,
right.
He's not like, if you don't know him actually person to person, you don't know him.
Right. I mean, meeting Tom McEwen's like meeting Magellan in person, right? I mean, it's like meeting the legend, one of the most important people in our sport. Would you say? He's right up there.
He's right up there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, can I post this picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say.
Well, I mean, it came from Steve McCone. I guess where this subject comes from. And,
yeah.
Well, you can
McEwen's an East Coast paddler. He is 73. He's the guy who taught me how to kayak. He taught Geltman how to kayak. He's taught countless lifelong paddlers to boat. There are literally generations of kayakers learned under his tutelage. At the same time, he is probably one of the most influential and accomplished whitewater paddlers in our sport, right?
Easily.
He ran Silencio, which is a waterfall on the Tamata, or what do they call it?
Alsaceca.
Alsaceca, yeah. He ran Silencio at 73. 73 years old, this guy fired off Silencio, which, how high is that? 50 feet?
I'd say it's probably 40, but it's got a burly entrance, some caved out walls at the bottom. It's not a gimme.
No,
by
it's not
any
a gimme.
means.
Right?
Yeah, I'll post
73 years old.
I'll post this picture in the show notes. You wouldn't believe it, but I mean, such an inspiration to anybody who ever looks at their birthday and just can't believe or like wants to make excuses about why you're not doing something, you're too old. Tom McEwen just shut you down.
And I want you to think about someone you know who's 73 and think about them running a 40-plus foot Class 5 waterfall.
And sticking it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super inspirational. Hats off to Steve-O for sending that to us. I mean, we've got to get Tom on. For some reason,
yes,
you're a little nervous about this, Weld. I'm not sure why, but I really want to get him on.
Tom,
I'm going to do it.
With Tom,
it's just going to be hard to do him justice. It's like it's going to be a tricky interview.
And he's not one to talk about himself. That's for sure.
Yep.
I'm not sure if through design or just we'd run a river, and that he would have run a horrendous class 5 rapid that everyone carried and maybe swam or he nailed it or whatever, and we get done with the river and we'd be like, Tom, that was awesome what you did. And he'd be like, yeah, it's awesome, and you could tell he had no idea what we were talking about. Like, he was like, that class 5 where you stuck that booth in the 20. He's like, yeah, no clue.
I guess I'm so fascinated because I've only met Tom one time, and I just want to dig a little deeper. I want to hear all your guys' story. Even if he's just sitting on the line silent, I just want to hear you guys talk about him. You guys will be so jacked up. Your adrenaline will be going.
Is remembering like the 60 or 70 most insane things I've ever done in my life where Tom was a part of, and reminding him what happened, and him kind of nodding his head like, yeah, that seems like it could have happened.
Anyway, I love this picture. It's so sick seeing him. I know that waterfall well. John, you have a little note here you want to talk about with your avalanche class and whitewater rescue. Where's this going?
I gotta throw this out. Yeah, I gotta throw this out.
Hey,
So
have you got any touring gear yet before we do this?
I did. I got the whole set. Yeah.
Yes.
I went out again. Anyway,
Nice.
yeah. So I took an avalanche class, which is what you do out here when you do backcountry skiing, right? And so an avalanche class, for those East Coasters who've never heard of such a thing, you go to these 3-day classes, and they're extremely well structured, right? This is like an avalanche. What's the word I'm looking for? Organization that, like a nonprofit that does all this research on what rescue techniques work and what rescue techniques don't work, and they have a really exacting curriculum for teaching people how to deal with avalanche dangers when you're skiing. And so if you're going to go backcountry skiing, you got to take this class, learn how to use a beacon and a shovel and all this stuff. And so, like, my first day in the class, right away I was like, why can't Whitewater get their shit together to have a curriculum like this? Well, my view evolved. I see Lewis give me a face. I'm like, because look at this. There's like millions of dollars being spent on this research, and this is, a very well thought out program I'm listening to, right? I'm like, why can't Whitewater get their act together and deal with whitewater rescue in the same way? And then by day 2, I was starting to realize that there's very little parallels, because avalanche is sort of it happens and then it's done, and you go in and you can rescue people. But in whitewater, usually it's you watching some guy getting worked in a hole, just standing there waiting to see what happens. And the variables in that situation are very different than an avalanche, right? There's no terminating of that event. It just keeps going. And then by the end of the class, I was starting to realize that even this well-regimented avalanche class, I was starting to think that there was no answers anyway, because everyone who went to the class was wanting to know when there was going to be an avalanche. And so someone would raise their hand and be like, so you're saying when it rains, there's going to be an avalanche? And the instructor would be like, well, maybe. And then someone would be like, okay, so you're saying when it rains and then it freezes, there's going to be an avalanche? They're like, nah, could be. But there's no pinpointing when this would actually happen. I mean, at the end of the day, it was still you going out and taking a risk, going skiing that day. And you could maybe avoid some really stupid mistakes, but pinpointing the exact problem. But I don't know. That was my take on it. I wanted to open this up for a larger discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost more like you're trying to learn to read water or something in like a classroom setting. I mean, it's like, to me, all the snow science stuff and all the the terrain factors and like all the things you're learning in that class. It's like you're saying, you're just learning factors that go into this more complex, really complex environment. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've never taken a swiftwater rescue class, so it's hard for me to compare. I guess in my imagination, it's sort of similar, but I don't know. I mean, the statistics are that you're more likely to die in an avalanche if you've taken an avalanche class.
Well, it's because you're going out.
Yeah, no, I mean, fair enough. But
That's not a good statistic.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think there might be some controlling for that, but I mean, part of it is that you think you know more than you do, and then you're going out and taking risks. But I mean, not to say that you shouldn't take an avalanche course, which everybody should.
Right. I mean, is there a better rescue technique than grab that bitch in paddle sports?
No.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's plan A.
Balls.
That's always plan A, right?
Absolutely
Right.
not. Absolutely not.
I mean yeah.
I think the important thing with Swiftwater and like an Avi class is practice. So I mean, it's just super good to practice using your beacon. It's super good to practice moving around on water and throwing your rope and just those elements. And I think a class is great. There's a lot of knowledge, but I think you gotta. I don't know. I think you gotta practice. I mean,
You
like
practice and you got to think. It's like there is no formulaic answer to like when there's going to be a slide. There is no formulaic answer to like how you deal with a rescue situation in kayaking. It's like you got to just get experience as safely as you can, and then keep your head on a swivel.
have you done much big mountain backcountry yet, Weld? Have you
I
got
went
up
for
there
the first time last weekend.
Isn't it
I
kind
felt
of
like it's set up.
Isn't it kind of spooky up there, just knowing how deep the snow is underneath you and just thinking about it just moving?
We were in 10 feet of snow, and there's been 2 people dying in tree wells this past weekend alone on Mount Hood. One of them was a ski guide at Timberline on Mount Hood, so not just some piker out there getting in over his head. But it was it felt much more like whitewater kayaking than any other sport that I've done.
Yeah, it's
There's
pretty.
because we're at the top of hills, definitely, and we're all paddlers. We were all paddlers out there, as Fuseli and John Regan and this guy named Topher and myself. But it felt just like whitewater kayaking.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
yeah, it was awesome. It was great.
Yeah, I don't know. My takeaway would be that. I mean, if we went out and we were cruising around and I just kind of threw my pack out into the woods and you didn't know it was out there and we just did a little avalanche drill. I mean, do you think you could find it in 1 minute, 2 minutes? Like the more you practice, you can narrow that stuff in really good. There's little things you can do.
Yeah, the technology is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Moving on to the Alex Jones segment of the show here.
That's right.
InfoWars. So, tell me about this conspiracy theory you have. You believe.
I don't believe, but I saw that this. I know we only do a show, twice a year now, so it's hard to stay current. But a bit ago, there was a viral video of Eric Jackson in his camper trailer or his RV with allegedly his dog putting the rig into reverse and backing it into the water. Right? Did you see this, Geltman?
I did.
Yeah. So my first instinct was that Jackson staged this. First of all, there's 2 cameras on his trailer or his RV while this is happening, right? Just a 2-camera accidental capture. And also, what a perfect piece of publicity, right? If Jackson's written in gigantic letters across the vehicle, it goes viral immediately. I saw it like on a national news station, like at the end of the news program.
Oh, yeah, it's like a 10 million view video,
Right. Anybody? Hello?
What do you think, Lewis?
That had not occurred to me.
If it, hey, if he did it, first of all, if he did it, that is quite the gamble to throw your RV in the river and have it floating around, because you have no idea if you're going to get it back, if it's like how that's going to shake up. But
he had someone driving it.
he had someone drive it.
Destroyed, right?
I don't think so. I think it was back like 10 feet into the water, and they drove it back out again.
Oh, and the Earth is flat. I don't know.
All right, listen, I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know. If so, I mean, we'll have to,
Alex Jones.
we'll have to get EJ on the line here and see.
I'm just asking questions. That's all I'm doing. Just asking questions.
Oh man, moving on. I don't know. Well, mate, you could be right. I'm gonna think about it. I'll definitely think about it. I mean, it could be. I mean, EJ is known for how many decades of being the master of the PR stunt.
That's right. He's P.T. Barnum.
He is the P.T. Barnum of whitewater kayaking. There is no doubt about it.
Right.
Anyway,
I'm not saying it in a negative way. EJ, if you're listening, or Dane, or I'm not. Listen, I'm not bad. I'm not trash talking your old man.
No, I mean,
right? I mean, you want to get 10 million views of your Jackson logo, boom, done.
You heard it first here on the Hammer Factor. All right, this comes out from Robert Taylor. This is a pretty good one, talking about guys like Tom McEwen and whatnot. When I was coming up in the early 90s, all the best Class 5 paddlers had a common thread. They didn't brag, take pictures, or try to sell their accomplishments. Nobody talked about boating until they were boating. Your strokes told your story amongst your peers. That was the warrior code. Humble, quiet about your success in an environment that deserves respect. This whole scene now has destroyed the most beautiful part. The best paddlers in the world are hustling home to post pics and tell stories to facilitate the stoke. It's like watching Johnny Cash sell Viagra on TV. What happened?
I think he's really speaking to Geltman here.
Yeah, I think I'll pass this to you, Lewis.
I mean, those guys are still out there, man.
We just talked to one.
Yeah. Team Beer, everybody in Idaho.
Right, the Hermit Kingdom.
Those guys are still out there. Don't despair too much. But I mean, I think what happened is social media happened, and the possibility of generating enough income to keep living the dream happened, which is an understandable temptation for people, right? And then I think there's a lot of young guys who, either aspire to that or just kind of model that behavior thoughtlessly, and it's sort of generational, I mean, it's just new generation.
They, how should I say it? The governor has been pulled off of that, because I know, for the period of time when I was pushing hard and documenting things, there was always kind of a little feeling of, I don't know. It was always in the back of your head, how do we talk about this? How much do we talk about it? There was always, but I think that governor's gone now. I think it's throw it out there and spew. That's like it's kind of a race to the bottom. Anyway, moving on, Daniel Gertie. Daniel Gertie comes in. This is about clubs. I mentioned that I thought clubs were good to the sport. Daniel has a paragraph here. I won't read the whole thing, but he says, on any given day, the biggest kooks on the river are club boaters. If there's a person leading a parade of full-face cage helmets down the skirt lines with fingerless gloves hiding their white-knuckle grip, they're a club boater.
Dude, the Long Creek gangsters are turning it around, man.
Exactly. I mean, there are some elements of truth to this, but at the same time, that group of people is so important to paddling. I mean,
seriously. They're my peeps.
Yeah.
Right?
There is some elements of truth there, but
listen, if you're willing to go out and run, the lower yacht for the first time, and you're terrified, but you're doing it anyway, and you're cold and you're scared, you're getting ready to run Dimple, man, you're in, right? Come on.
Totally. And
right?
Plus knowing that you're profoundly uncool, right? It's like those guys know that. They know they're old and learning, and it's like they're doing it anyway. That's awesome.
They're on the side of the river, they're eating a peanut butter and jelly and some gorp, they're freezing their ass off. It's awesome. That's what it's all about.
And they're doing it every weekend.
Right.
And they're not just blowing up and fizzling out. They're doing it for years. Some of the guys that in the original kayaking club, the Ohio Valley Whitewater Club that I started in, they're still going out 20 weekends a year.
Do you remember that Nike commercial 2 years ago? And it was just people it ended with that kid that that 6-year-old or whatever jumping off that high dive. It was just a minor victory.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? It's all a matter of perspective, right?
No,
all those people felt that no matter how big or small the task, they were all feeling the same emotion.
Yeah. Well,
and kayaking definitely presents its own unique challenges that a vast majority of Americans simply do not want to consider as even a possibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
I think it's cool, man.
I hear what Daniel's saying there, but I kind of am going to stick by my guns on that one. I think clubs are a good thing.
I think Hammer Factor's weighed in on that one pretty hard.
Here's a really good one. I'll throw this over to Lewis. Greetings from Jackson, Wyoming. Thanks for the podcast. Longtime paddling friend just introduced me to it, and it's helping to keep the stoke alive for paddling season in cold Wyoming. He said backcountry skiing is a very acceptable alternative as well.
Indeed.
Quick hits. What are the predictable thoughts? This is the one I want to cover, most importantly. What are the predictable thoughts on the attached picture? Indoor sup racing in Canada. A new low in paddle sports?
I mean, this isn't even paddle sports. It's gone beyond.
My favorite part of this is like he's got this screenshot of it from the Werner Paddles Facebook page, and there's 7 people viewing it. so I'm going to go ahead and let that speak for itself with this one.
Oh man.
Anyway, there's some other great points here with Daniel, but we are way over time, and man. We got a shark versus bear stickered, spotted in Colorado. This is really good. I'll post that in the show notes. That's actually one of my favorite. Isn't that a pretty cool little sticker?
I think you're right. I think you said this before the show started. That's a good like full back tattoo for Graham.
Well, thanks for those listener mails. We have a lot more we're going to get into, but let's get into the high and the dry. Okay, are you guys both aware of what the high and the dry is?
How could we not be aware of this at this point?
Okay.
This idea was shot out of a cannon at us from 60 different directions.
Yeah, we had many pieces. So if you don't know what the high and dry is, essentially it is a big
high in dry and dry.
Yeah, high dash in dry. Anyway, it's essentially a big floaty looking miniature punching bag that like straps right over your paddle. Wouldn't you say?
It's like a pool noodle that's going over like the center of your paddle to help you with your shaky roll.
Yeah, but it's super fat.
Yeah, the diameter is like 12 inches.
Yeah, so
don't think this is like a 2-inch diameter tube. It's huge. Like enough that would be obscuring your vision, I would think.
It would be good for someone with like a 0 degree 191 because they could never get a vertical stroke and you'd never have to worry about that thing getting in your way.
That's careful. I don't want to go back into this.
Anyway, you're right. Maybe I'll edit that out. Anyway, there's this video, and I'll include it in the show notes. We've got several emails. One comes from Joe, Ronan, Jet. We got everybody sending this in. It's all the same commentary. What the hell is going on with this thing? Did you guys watch the video?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to describe the video real quick before you guys talk about, I want to hear before we hear your opinions. Anyway, video starts. Dude with big punching bag on his paddle right in front of his face starts going down. He's in some super round Jackson boat, starts going down the Cascades. So if you've been to the Cascades, it's decent. It's hard whitewater. There's some holes to miss. It's like real whitewater. You got to really know how to do it. There's some bad spots in there. The rapid below there's some pinning potential. Anyway, this homeboy takes off. I don't have his name. I don't want to mention his name. But anyway, takes off down this rapid and has one of the most supreme beatering. Runs things backwards, runs things sideways, gets surfed in holes, pins momentarily.
It would be identical if it was just a mannequin in that boat.
Yes.
Floating down the rapid. There would be no difference in line.
That is a very good way to put it.
So, speaking of conspiracy theories, I looked at this and I was like, this cannot possibly be real. It's like the commentary is like the video commentary is ridiculous, and then he's like, there's something in there about like wanting to pick a sick song, and the song that he's picked is Sail.
Yeah.
like there's no way this can possibly be real.
But it was real.
I think that was like one of the Long Creek gangsters dressed up and
who knows? But you got to check this video out. So let's just narrow it down. What do you guys think about the high and dry concept?
Oh, come on. You need to learn to roll with a paddle or pick another sport.
And you need to not be on that kind of whitewater. You know what I mean? If you're like going down your first class 1 river and you want to have your high and dry to help you practice, maybe there's room for it. But you don't need to be going out to a place where you can potentially pin and cause people to have to jump in the river and grab your bitch ass.
If you're that paralyzed with fear about kayaking that you need to use the high and dry, you need to move on. There's other sports for you to try. Right?
Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is beneath us.
Anyway, we got your messages about the high and dry. I think our sentiment is the same as yours. I hope that guy, whichever one of the gangsters did that, feels bad about himself.
That's one of the Long Creek quote-unquote gangsters. It's not like honor roll students at the Catholic school to me, but that's one of the Long Creek gangsters, and that is a really great hoax. Truly,
I'm gonna go ahead and
hats off.
We got to get that guy on the show. You know, when we end up, maybe I'll try and find him right now, and you guys take over some of these reviews, and we'll bring him on.
No, we can't have that guy on because it's the same thing as it's like with the club boaters. It's like we're here to make fun of the Ryan Zinkies and the professional kayakers and the people who have more power and more are cooler than we are. We're not here to make fun of tool bags. Tool bags make fun of themselves.
You know, not to switch gears here, but you know, we got in there, we fixed LWCF, we got it passed, we got Zinke out of there. I think our next mission is the Mark Meadows project. So we need a T-shirt. We need to come up with that. We need some kind of something
He's
for
the
that
new
guy.
Hammer Factor whipping boy.
Exactly, dude. That guy has got to go.
You think you're suggesting that the Zinke Subs T-shirt was instrumental in his ousting?
Clearly.
Okay.
I mean, it had I mean, dude, something like that comes out of the universe. There's going to be like an equal and opposite force.
Did you guys see? I can't go too far down this road, but did you guys see that there was like a news story that was in a bunch of news outlets like a couple weeks ago about there was a list of maybe 8 guys at Department of Interior who were under various ethics investigations. And I've met with 3 of the 8 people on the list, like several of them in just like all-time hilarious interviews or meetings with, yeah. I can't even go too far down this road, but it surprised me like not in the least. And I went back and had some meetings with DOI and with the Council on Environmental Quality this week, and like everything that you imagine about what's going on in those agencies under Trump is it's like that. Everything you imagine.
It's just oozing with slime.
Yeah.
Right. All right, I don't want to get into too much of that here. We need to stick with one target, and his name is Mark Meadows. Chris Danielson wants a Steez review. Has anybody paddled the Steez? I saw a sick little video that Ryan
I haven't
Lucas
seen
put
one.
up.
Is there one around?
There's a few in the gorge now. I've not paddled it yet. I've not seen one in the flesh yet, but Benny was pretty jazzed about it.
He was digging it. What was it? Did you get any kind of takeaway from him?
It was a short conversation, but he was pretty positive.
The
takeaway was that I need to go take it for a rip.
Did he try the pleasure pod?
I believe not.
We'll get back to you on that, Chris. Man, here's a good one we've touched on in the past. With the paddle feather top, this comes at us from Jacob Cruiser. With the paddle feather topic shelved, I want to hear more about another gear topic Lewis brought up a bunch of episodes back. We had a short rant that resonates with me about how nearly every boat company has artificially limited themselves to 9 feet when designing creek boats. Whitewater companies have fleets that go straight from 9 to 12 plus feet. I don't understand why. Sickline doesn't even exist anymore. This is frustrating because it limits the possibilities of boat designs for everybody and actually limits the possibilities for tall, larger guys. Is the 9-foot market really so big that investing in an ever-diminishing percentage of that market share is more financially viable than filling this void in boat design? Lately, I've been using a 200 centimeter straight shaft paddle with a redacted feather. Hey, I am 100% in agreement. Listen to me. If you're a race director I'm talking to you. Get rid of the boat length. You don't need it. There's not one in the North Fork race. There's not one in the Green race. You don't need the boat. Get rid of that. Let the course decide what boats you're going to paddle out there. The Russell Fork race, people used to try to take wave hoppers and super long boats down there, and some people did pretty good on them, but the course lent itself to modern longboat technology. The North Fork race is lending itself to that area. We need to get rid of that 9-foot thing. That's my take on that. So, Weld, you got any thoughts?
I just agree with your premise a little bit.
Why is that?
I mean, I think take a look at the Upper Yacht race, and you get 100 people show up. I mean, no one wants to be 90th, right? So you come up with classes, and people kind of figure out where the strong points are. Like, it's understood that the longer boats are going to be expert paddlers, and then sort of the more weekend warriors can go in shorter boats. And it opens up an opportunity for more people to feel like they have a shot. That's all. And if you only have a creek boat, you don't want to be racing against some guy in a wave hopper, right? I mean, not everyone has 6 boats to race. My opinion on this is that I think we need, and this is Calhoun's job, is that Calhoun needs to put together, and I said this before, he's put together a website that is an annually or somewhat updated list of boat categories. And that'll be the established boat categories. And race directors don't have to deal with it. There's just one established set. If people want to solicit the power, Calhoun, whoever's running this website, to change it or update the boat list or whatever, and that's the way to do it. And if you want to have a race with boat lengths, just say this website, this is the standard we're using. It's done. The problem isn't the classes. The problem is that these overworked race directors have to figure this out at the last minute every time they put on a race, and then they have to start measuring, take consideration the 10 new boats that came out this year and how they fit into the scheme of things. That's more the problem. And if this was just done one time every year and everyone just paid attention to that one list, it would make it much more manageable. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard for racing, but I feel like, to Jacob's point, like, racing is just not a big enough part of the sport for it to be dictating boat design the way it is,
Yeah. Now, what Jacob's saying is entirely different. Right. But yeah, I was addressing more Grace's getting rid of the boat classes in terms of what.
It's hard because boats,
I don't know.
If there was a 10-foot boat out there right now, everybody would want to race it at the Little White race, and then a bunch of dude bros who have their sponsor and can't paddle the 10-foot boat are going to be bent out of shape because somebody's going to mop the floor with them in this better, faster boat. And whoever has that boat is coming from the East Coast is going to be like, am I just going to bring this 10-foot boat when I want to go from the Little White to California? Like what am I going to do with that? And that's why it is the way it is. But I agree that it sucks that you can't get a 9-foot kayak.
Yeah.
You can't cater to sponsored paddlers in this regard. If they lose a race because their sponsored boat company doesn't give them the right boat, wah.
No, I mean, I totally agree, but it's like when that's. I mean, I totally agree, but then it's like it's like you're saying, it just creates more burden for the race organizers. Like, how do I deal with this in a way that's fair?
Well, like I said, I think you have one central.
It's not just
dealt with.
Yeah. Well, if you want to put a short boat class in, it should just be understood that, if you have a course like you're talking about where you can take a long boat or a short boat, and some people don't have them, I think it should be understood that you're racing in the amateur class and that you can move up to the big leagues at some other time. I think it's just artificial to. Yeah, that 9-foot rule is weird. I mean, it was 8'6" until we decided to let the remix in the green race. I'm gonna change it to 10 foot now. Done.
Do it.
Here, this comes at us from Rusty Shackelford, a.k.a. Taft Sibley. He says, I have a few friends who have experienced long-term back pain after decades of playboating. I guess the torque forces in the lower back could be conductive to bad stuff. I've recently upgraded my creek boat to a sporty new boat, a Nirvana, and feel that my paddling style is adjusted to the aggressive chines. While the boat responds incredibly and inspires confidence, it seems that the paddling style is akin to playboating. Long story short, my back hurts after paddling the creeks, and I think it's related to the way I torque the boat around when catching eddies, boofing, and carving down the river. Thoughts?
Mm,
Mm,
I don't know about that one.
it doesn't really make sense.
You're just getting old, Rusty. Sorry.
Yeah, Rusty needs to stick to trail running.
Yeah.
Stretch out his hamstrings there, buddy. Rusty was the squirt boating world champion at one time. Hello, Hammer Factor. Good job for calling out boat manufacturers for a few seemingly subpar small boat designs. Thank you. I did notice, however, a critical error in your evaluation of why these boats don't fit smaller paddlers. While weight matters, the biggest problem is fit. If you have short legs like me, the knee walls have too much volume to achieve a snug fit in the boat, creek boats especially. Boats are too big. Changed my mind. This comes from Sarah.
Well, she's 100% right.
And that comes,
she's 110% right.
Yeah. And it comes back to the problem that there's just not enough money to create all of this stuff that we want. I mean,
in this sport.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it is a matter of economics.
I mean, just imagine the level of bike fit technology. Just
right.
I don't know.
But I mean, it doesn't take any more money to make the small boat correct. And she's right.
Well, it takes a $40,000 tooling charge or whatever to make that boat.
But I think she's saying when they make the small boat, they're making the small boat anyway, but they're just not doing it right.
Oh, with the outfitting.
No, with the deck shape around your knees.
Yeah.
She could be right there. I mean.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, no. Like I know Kara cannot. I mean, every single time Kara gets in a boat, there's 8 inches of mini cell being cut around the knee braces so her legs can reach the top of the boat, right? And that's even on quote unquote women's creek boats or small person's creek boats. So, I mean, there's some legitimate concern there.
Maybe these companies need to hire some women designers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, when is there going to be Tammy Ritchie, she's designer out of Warner. When are we going to have...
Let's not go crazy here, Lewis. Okay.
Listen, Weld, we're all aware of your position on these matters.
Let's not. I don't think women are really ready for that.
Moving on. This comes to us from Quint Doan.
I'm kidding. I don't want to hear it.
Quint Doan says, and this is a really good one. I have an opinion on. Weld will probably talk over me when it's time to give my opinion, but anyway. I switched crews from paddling a Dagger Mamba to 9-foot boats with lots of rocker on both ends, the Phantom and Nirvana. I also lived in Colorado, so I boat as much on rocks as I do on water. Since switching, I've noticed that when I come off a drop, sometimes my stern will bump the rock, creating the lip, what I call the stern tap. My question is whether the stern tap is a side effect of bad boofing technique or a change in boat design. It seems to me that the heavy stern rocker and the longer boat would create a situation where a boat staying flat off the lip of a drop would completely disconnect when the lip passes the boater's hip, but bump the stern when the boat begins to fall at the end of the boof. Leaning into the boof stroke seems to help but doesn't solve it. Any thoughts? I would prefer that the problem is boat design and not my technique, but my technique is definitely suspect. Also, paddling with more water isn't always an option. Cheers, Quint. I have a really good one on this if you guys want to hear about it. And I have a whole
lay it on us.
I have a whole theory on this, okay? So, a shorter boat. Okay, so you have a boat design. The way I think of boat design is you have essentially the 4 corners of the boat. And the 4 corners are where you have 2 corners in the front. That's where the boat starts to narrow and where the rocker starts. And then you have 2 corners in the back where the boat begins to narrow and where it starts to rocker. Does that make sense? And I know it's not exactly 4 quarters, but for the gist of it. So it's kind of where that rocker starts and where that taper starts to come in. On the shorter boats, like take the old Hefe or whatnot, it was super easy to boof, because that rocker was up under your butt, and pretty much as soon as you were coming off, it was very easy to get to that bending part of the hull to get your nose up. You guys follow me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you got a longer boat, you push those corners back a little bit, and if you don't have enough speed, when you're getting that boof, just like she's talking about, or just like he's talking about, when you get to that point, your stern is going to tap, just a little bit right there. Now that seems like a negative. You're like, oh, my bow's falling. But what happens is when you, not to say your technique's bad, but when you get a little bit more speed, you get a little bit more lean and edging on your boof, what that allows you to do is get out further from the hole that you're trying to boof over. So like a shorter boat with more rocker, you're going to kind of just slough into the deep part of the hole. But if you have this boat with a little bit longer, and it may seem like it's a little harder to get that stern to fully release, when you get it right, you're going to propel further away. You're going to gain inches when you land off of your boof and get you through the hole better. That's my theory.
You're saying a longer boat requires more of a pull to clear the lip.
And a little more speed and a little more edging. You got to use that arc. And I'm making hand motions here, which I got chastised for doing one time in the show. But I think that once you figure out the technique of a little bit longer boat, you're going to be able to get further out and have better success boofing holes rather than just sloughing down into the meat of them and getting back-entered.
I think the stern tap, the shorter the boat, the more rocker you have, the less you're going to stern tap. But it's also like where you're boofing from. Like sometimes there's a little bit of a lip like upstream of the drop. Like sometimes you're boofing off a little bit of a wave before you actually get to the proper lip of the drop, so that then when your stern actually gets to the proper lip, your boat's already kind of falling, even if it's flat, and that's when you get those stern taps. But I think a lot of the times it's just you got to kind of like learn the run and learn where those are. I mean, there are drops in the little white that, I just sort of like intuitively know where the stern taps are and kind of how to avoid them, but it's just very like place specific. And then also, I mean, I don't know, just thinking back on like when I was a kid paddling a slalom boat all the time, it's like, this isn't new, right? I mean, I broke the stern on every single slalom boat I ever had, stern tapping on drops. Like, it's just kind of in the game.
And I'd say it's kind of both. Some boats are more prone to that stern tap, but I think when you can develop that timing like you're talking about, and maybe a little more speed and some different edging, you can run burlier holes. You can get through burlier features, in my opinion. Weld?
I don't know.
Wow, that's a first.
I don't know. I'm kind of puzzled by this one. It's just so many variables at play there. I don't know. I don't know how to sort it all out.
Yeah, that's something that could require some other things. But I think it's a combination of both. I think it's just getting used to a new boat, and I think that there's a lot of potential with that little longer stern, in my opinion, to paddle burlier whitewater. Here we go. This comes at us from Kobe Trinker. Hey, buds, I'll be concise. Firstly, best shuttle vehicles equals the Yamaha BWSR 50. It costs nothing to insure, fits in a van or on the back of most cars, 100% street legal, gets up any shuttle road, and can pop wheelies at the same time. You can also double on it, which comes in handy. Here's Sticky Buds, my faithful steed. He's got a picture here. I bought it for 750 Canadian dollars 3 years ago. Have been yeasting the shit out of it since day one, and it hasn't cost me a dime in maintenance. Secondly,
this guy's onto something, by the way. Hold on for a second. This guy's onto something. It's the BWSR 50 Yamaha, and that's the Canadian. I looked this up. That's the Canadian version. There's a US version. It's a different number, but I don't know what it is. It's like a little teeny moped with like off-road tires on it.
It's rad.
It is badass. It is badass.
It is rad.
Right? It blows that stupid one wheel horse shit you guys out of the water, by the way. It's not even close.
You can't fit it under the back seat of your... Okay.
That doesn't make it... That's not a good quality.
Wait till the next version of one wheel comes out. Increased mileage, right. Bigger tire. Second...
Did you see this thing, Kelly?
What's that?
Did you see Sticky Buds?
Huh? Talking about like a 50 dirt bike?
Did you look at the picture of his thing?
Do you read the emails we send you, Lewis?
Sometimes.
This thing is badass. I mean, it's like a souped up off-road scooter.
Sounds sweet.
Yeah, and you don't need a license for it. You don't need to get a motorcycle license for it, that's a consideration. I just got a motorcycle license. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It's a huge rigmarole.
You don't need.
It's like I was getting into law school. That's basically what it was like. It was like 15 exams, weekends, studying. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You don't need gas. You don't need gas or a license with a one wheel. Let me add. Another good point from Kobe here. He says, secondly, how about a show about river photography, best cameras, etc.? Maybe someone like Boomer or Parker could share some knowledge and tips about equipment and photos on the river. Thirdly, at this point, you should just change the name of the show to The Paddle Offset Bigots.
See, he has to go there. And this is after we talked about how great a shuttle vehicle was.
Anyway, good points from Kobe. We should do a photography special at some point. I think people.
Yeah, it's the iPhone, right? What's better than the iPhone?
Oh yeah.
I mean, seriously, I took my regular camera out with this backcountry ski trip. You know, the thing we did last weekend. I wish I just brought my cell phone. Honestly, the picture quality would be better on my cell phone. This is a nice camera.
We'll have to discuss that. I could really talk about that a little bit, but there's probably some better options out there than the camera that you're using.
Thanks for calling me, Weld. I wanted to call you to go ski this weekend, but I felt like I'd already hassled you too much about not having any gear.
Well, this wasn't my trip. Although, all things considered, you probably been more than welcome.
John Pruitt comes at us. John Pruitt here. 2 quick things for you guys. Minivans are the ultimate paddle rig. Our go-to plan when flying to Colorado or Cali was to rent 2 vans, strap 2x4s to the roof, and get after it. I felt bad for whatever family rented those vans once we were done. Keep the podcast coming.
Grace, you know what we should do? We should do a hot seat with you and me and LVM.
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know if we want to go there.
Because the listeners out there may not know this, but Grace and I were involved, IR and John Grace were involved with LVM together for many years. Just an interesting chapter.
We need like a couples therapist to mediate this conversation.
Who knows where it'll go?
Yeah.
Speaking of LVM, it's a big anniversary coming up.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, it is. Mr. Daniel De Laverne, one of the co-creators of LVM, his birthday would be tomorrow.
Would he have come on the show?
Oh, dude. He'd been on every show.
No. He would be deeply involved in every show. He would never come on. That's my prediction.
I don't know. He'd come on.
He'd be extremely passionate, to say the least.
Yeah, he would come on specifically for the rants. It would be like.
No, he was when it came down to like public, when he had public Daniel, which is very well spoken.
Yeah.
Very Southern gentry, right? He could hang with adults and be very polite. But when you got him in private, that's when you got the EJ has created the ultimate sacrilege email. The infamous sacrilege email.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty much it would be our pre-show. He'd just come on for the pre-show and get us all fired up.
He wouldn't come. Do you think he would come on? He'd actually come on the podcast?
I think so. I really do.
And speak his mind.
I really do. He may be a little more guarded than maybe we are from time to time, but I think he'd be all over it.
I know. God, what a shame.
Yeah, fully a shame. Nope, that's tomorrow. Big birthday tomorrow.
Damn.
John Pruitt does say something about LVM sucks. At least that's what a sticker I have said. I always love getting LVMs to see what crazy cool stuff other folks were up to. My question, what in the world do I do with all these DVDs and VHSs? Please keep the podcast coming. Save them to them. They could be, worth a lot of money someday.
He brings another person into our hot seat too, Spencer Cook.
We should get Spencer on the show.
I'd love to.
I think that'd be a good guest.
Spencer Cook?
Yeah.
He's seen it all, man.
I'll reach out to him. We'll see what he says.
I would be very interested to see how that goes.
Let's see. What do we got here? Bethany over. Oh, this is cool. Bethany Overfield. She is the AW membership director. I hung out with Bethany up at the National Paddling Film Fest. She says, "Hey guys, just want to send a quick note. Thanks for all your on-air love for American Whitewater. We recently had a member join, and he mentioned the following, in quotes, join because of the Hammer Factor podcast. They are a great advertiser for you guys. Thanks for all your work." Thank you, Bethany. Come on, that makes you feel good.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, another story to break off here before we get into Rants and Raves, because we're at 2 hours and 27 minutes of this podcast.
Come on, this has to be a two-parter, right?
Yeah, we got to break this into two parts. Nobody can listen to this show for this long. But, and this one's kind of more props to Lewis, because this is kind of Lewis's victory lap show anyway. But I was up at MPFF, and I was talking to a guy. I don't want to name any names, but it was 1 a.m. We had drank a bunch of moonshine, and we were down in the hotel lobby. And this guy opens up.
Were you dropping the R word?
No.
Hey,
I've
edit
shed.
that out,
I've
For the love of God, please edit that out.
No, I absolutely am leaving that in there. You know, I've shed that skin. You know, as I continually evolve, I learn, and I've shed that part of my life. But fair enough question to ask, because. But anyway, talking to this guy, he is from, for lack of a better term, the hills of Kentucky. What you would think of, you know, the give me my guns and God crowd, if that makes any sense. But anyway, he told me in about a 30-minute conversation about how Lewis Geltman fully changed his opinion, and he was so activated when Rand Paul decided to try and sell off this 150,000 acres of Daniel Boone National Forest. I don't know if you guys knew anything about this. That's a total different topic. But anyway, I was so inspired. I mean, he was reciting quotes and things that you have said, Lewis, and you've turned this guy into, I mean, a total
liberal.
No, just a soldier for public lands, you know? So it was just super refreshing.
Now that I've had that encouragement, expect nothing but political opinions from me from here on out. No, that's awesome, man. And yeah, that's sweet. And just like, to be serious about it, it's, you know, like we were talking about earlier, it's like we want this to be a nonpartisan issue. And if there are other things about the sort of conservative worldview that speak to you, and those are the lawmakers you identify with, like, you have more of an ability to communicate to those people than I am ever going to. So if you're able to reach out to those conservative members of Congress and say, hey, like, I see the world the same way you do. I'm voted for you. I'm on board with these other things that you're doing, but like, you're killing me on the public land stuff. Like, get with the program, keep wild rivers flowing free, keep, you know, public lands public. Your voice in that is going to resonate a lot more than mine ever will. So keep at it.
Yeah. No, it was super cool. I was sort of blown away by the quotes, and it was one of those things where someone's like, you remember in episode 24 when Lewis was talking about such and such, and I'm like, shit, dude, I remember like episode 9. That's like the only one I remember.
Man, I'm honored.
All right, well, I had something else I was going to say about that, but I forgot. So let's get right into everyone's favorite segment of the show. This is our Rants and Raves segment. This is where your host go on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave about something they're fired up about, either in a positive or not so positive way. Who would like to lead us off? I'll jump right in. So,
Lewis, you ready? Do you have one?
I don't know. I'll come up with something.
Jeez.
So I'm going to rant. I'm just going to go, being that we're right here in politics, I'm just going to rant about politics right now. All right? Because I can't have a conversation with anyone about anything of any substance with politics. And I think I talked to you a little bit about this on the phone the other day, Weld. And it's just, I'm going to throw it back to this whole, Lewis's victory lap is that you guys did an amazing job, that public lands has nothing to do with partisan politics or anything like that. And being that everyone was on board with that is how progress got made. And there's so many other things that I think progress could get made if everybody would just quit digging their feet in if someone makes one little comment that may not align to whatever was on CNN or Fox News. So that's my rant. Just a little more just listening, a little more less name calling, and big successes like this public lands package can happen. So that's my rant.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna rant about this is an apolitical rant. I'm over the make blank again construction. Everybody wants to like play off of Make America Great Again and be like make winter cold again, or make public lands public again, or like whatever it is. Just stop. It's played out.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I don't care if you're doing this as a Democrat or doing this as a Republican. It's just a played out construction. Just stop doing that. It's not witty. I'm over it.
Here.
And it's built on the faulty assumption that something was in fact great at one point. In many cases, it wasn't even that great to begin with.
And I don't even want to I don't even want to take it that deep. It's just played out.
Shut us down, Mr. Weld.
I'm gonna rave. I'm gonna rave about an individual named Johnny Regan, who
yes.
We went skiing with this weekend, right? And here's a guy, paddle. John Regan, because John Regan he's like the hub of a very big wheel, right? And he has friends and connections in pretty much every outdoor hotspot in the country. And he shows up these places. He knows everybody. He remembers stories about them. He's encouraging them to go do things. He's excited to go out. We went out skiing with him for a full 8 hours. He was
oh my God, this is the best snow. This is the greatest snow.
So psyched the entire time and so positive and so excited to be out there. And guy's got to be, I don't know, well into his 50s or 60. He's been killing it for 50 years. The guy's been slaying it. It's just awesome. I don't know. It was a really positive experience, and I'm a pretty bitter, jaded guy sometimes, and I need that influence in my life.
Just having the inner fire to just continue to be stoked even as you're getting older,
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so hard sometimes when you're just not as good at something as you used to be. Your body hurts, and it's so easy to start feeling kind of negative about stuff or comparing yourself to other people, and it's
Not
Regan's
the case.
never there.
Never there.
Yeah.
Never there. Yeah. It was great.
I had one of the best days in a long time paddling with, randomly, just out of the blue, saw John Regan in the parking lot right by the Nolichucky. He was driving through to Piranha, and we had a day on the river, and it was just like you said, this rapid's so good. Yeah. I've never had such a good level out here in my life. I'm just by the time I got off the river, I was doing push-ups and jumping jacks. I was so excited.
Yeah, one of my whitewater heroes for sure.
We
should do a whole. We
got to get Regan on.
Dude, we got to have Regan and Jess and Roger, and just maybe not all at once, but just some stories about.
Maybe it's tough to get them all in the same room together.
I mean, dude, I feel there's so much about Friendsville that's I feel there's so much to learn about sort of the evolution of a whitewater town that we're going through here in the gorge right now, and just such a cool era of the sport when guys were designing and building their own gear, and I have this picture here on my bulletin board that just I love. That's Jesse Whittemore paddling a boat that he built using a backwind paddle with a helmet that he made and a mountain surf skirt that he designed and probably made, and just doing a rock splat that is a move that he invented. And it's to me that just is the epitome of so much that's awesome about kayaking, and that's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah Whittemore's incredible. He's a guy that would see something in the sport and build an entire set of equipment to do something that no one else even thought of when they saw the river, and did it.
That's so fascinating. It's so fascinating to me, the way that mind works, even down to the best athletes or best race car drivers, just like all those little ticks that go on that separate them like that. I'm always fascinated by that.
Those guys, yeah, and like Whittemore and Regan. I mean, they're very different paddling styles, or just, but like I feel like they're both super influential for me. Just like there was always a lot of kind of interplay between the slalom scene in DC and the guys who were up in Western Maryland running rivers all the time. And I feel like they just sort of saw the stuff that was coming from the slalom world and like took the things that made sense and like disregarded the rest and like kind of incorporated all of that into their paddling style. And
I
like
think
that's
for
what
sure.
that's like always what I'm trying to do out here is like just seeing those guys. They just always wanted to paddle fast. They always wanted to be creative and take the hardest lines and just like look at the river in a creative sort of hard charging way. And like that was always like my goal was to like paddle on like the rivers out here like the way those guys paddle on the rivers back home,
Right. No, for them there was no, and most good paddlers, I think there was no distinction between style was an essential part of the paddling. There was no just running or charging a rapid and just completing it unless you had style.
Totally.
You didn't do it if there wasn't style involved. And they'd recognize slalom for what it was.
Anyway,
that
was a nice long tangent off of John's rib there.
That's a good show. I mean, somehow I kept it pretty stimulating for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Well, big thanks to Rocky Contos for coming on the show. Thank you, man. Big thanks to Benny Drew and Hunter Cooper, Gangsters, for coming on the show. Of course, thank you to all of the listeners out there, everyone who submitted mail, and we'll try to get one of these together in the near future.
Sure.
Shrig. That's a new word. Shrig.